The first thing to register was the pain. It wasn't the clean, hot agony of a fresh wound, but a deep, throbbing, septic ache that seemed to radiate from his very bones. Kalen's eyes snapped open. The ceiling was rough-hewn wood, not the familiar plaster of his alpha quarters. The air smelled wrong, damp earth, foreign herbs, and the thick, coppery scent of his own blood. He tried to shift, to call on the strength of his wolf, but there was nothing. Only a hollow, terrifying void where his power should have been. He gritted his teeth, pushing himself up on one elbow. The movement sent a volley of fire screaming through his torso, and a low groan tore from his throat. That's when he saw them. They stood in the shadows, ringing the cot he lay on, silent, watching. Not his pack, not his allies. 30 of them. 30 shifters from the Stonefang pack, their faces carved from granite, their eyes holding a mixture of suspicion and cold curiosity. He was in their territory. He was wounded, and he was utterly, terrifyingly alone. Wait, before the next revelation unfolds, if this mystery has already captivated you, let us know where you're following this story from. To ensure you don't miss unexpected claims, broken bonds, or awakenings under the moon, subscribe and stay close. Now, back to the scene. Kalen's gaze snapped to the largest of them, the man standing at the foot of the bed. Marcus, the Stonefang Alpha. His arms were crossed over his massive chest, and his expression was one of pure, contained fury. "He's awake," Marcus stated, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through the small infirmary room. The others shifted, their collective presence a suffocating weight. Kalen tried to sit up fully, but the pain lanced through him, white-hot and sharp. He fell back against the thin mattress, his breath hissing between his teeth. He instinctively reached for his side, his fingers brushing against thick layers of bandages. Even through the cotton, he could feel the slick, hot wetness of fresh bleeding. The memory came back in a sickening rush. Not the fight, not the chase, but the moments after. Lying broken in the mud, the scent of pine and his own defeat thick in his nostrils. And then, the cub. Small, terrified eyes, flashing claws, a sharp, repetitive agony. 8 times. He'd been stabbed, efficiently and brutally, by a wolf cub. The absurdity of it would have made him laugh if every breath didn't feel like swallowing glass. "Alpha Kalen of the Blood Moon," Marcus sneered, stepping forward. The name, his title, felt alien in this hostile room. "You have nerve, trespassing on my land. More nerve still, threatening a cub." Kalen's head swam. "I threatened no cub," he forced out. His throat was sandpaper. "I was tracking a rogue." "Silas," Marcus said, and the name hung in the air, dead and heavy. "We know the name you hunt, a ghost story you use to justify your incursions. But you strayed too far, Blood Moon. You cornered an orphan, and he defended himself." "Defended?" Kalen's mind recoiled. That was defense? He remembered the sheer viciousness of the attack, the small body lunging again and again. "He is of alpha blood, even if he is small," Marcus said dismissively. "He protected his territory. My pack found you bleeding out, moments from death. The only reason you're alive is because my healer intervened." A woman moved from the shadows. She was small, almost fragile compared to the brutes surrounding her, with wild, dark hair pulled back in a messy braid, and eyes the color of a stormy sea. She carried a wooden bowl, steaming with a pungent herbal broth. She wore the simple flaxen tunic of an Omega, but she didn't move like one. There was no subservience in her spine, no fear in her gaze as she met his. She stopped at his bedside, her expression unreadable. "Lyra," Marcus commanded. "He's awake. See to him. The council will decide his fate." The other shifters filed out, their heavy footsteps shaking the floorboards, leaving Kaelin alone with the woman and the 2 guards posted at the door. Lyra. She placed the bowl on a rickety side table, her movements economical and precise. "Drink," she ordered. Her voice was quiet, but it held a steel thread that belied her rank. "I don't need," Kaelin began, but his own body betrayed him, his stomach clenching in a spasm of hunger and weakness. He tried to push himself up again and failed, the room tilting dangerously. A small, cool hand pressed against his shoulder, pushing him gently but firmly back down. "Don't be a fool. You lost too much blood. You've been unconscious for 2 days. If you want to face your judgment, you'll need your strength." He stared up at her. Her face was close, her features fine-boned and etched with a weariness that went beyond her years. He could smell her scent, rain, moss, and something uniquely, painfully familiar. His wolf, silent and broken inside him, gave a weak, questioning stir. "Who are you?" he rasped. "I am Lyra. I am the one who stitched you back together, Alpha," she said, her title for him laced with a subtle venom. "And I'm the one who cares for Milo." "The cub," Kaelin breathed. "The one who had shredded him?" "Yes." Her gaze hardened. "The cub you tried to harm." "I told your Alpha I wasn't." "Save your lies," she cut him off, dipping a cloth into a bowl of cool water. "I was there. I found you. I saw the tracks. You, a full-grown Alpha, bearing down on a lone cub. What else was he supposed to do?" She began to dab at the sweat and grime on his forehead. Her touch was surprisingly gentle, clinical, yet it sent a bizarre jolt through his skin. He was a prisoner, accused of a heinous crime, and he was being tended to by a woman who clearly despised him. But as she worked, her brow furrowed in concentration, he saw something else, a deep, profound sadness in her eyes. "The wounds," he managed, his voice thick. "They feel wrong, poisoned." Lyra's hands stilled for a fraction of a second. "You were in the Deadwood Marsh. The mud there, it infects everything." She avoided his eyes, turning to the bandages on his torso. "I need to check the stitches." He braced himself as she began to carefully peel back the bandage. The air hit the wounds, and he sucked in a sharp breath. He looked down. 8 small, precise punctures, almost surgical, arranged in a tight pattern over his lower ribs. They were an angry, inflamed red, leaking a dark, sluggish fluid. "He's just a cub," Kaelin whispered, more to himself than to her. How could a cub do this?" "Milo is different," Lyra said tightly, her focus entirely on cleaning the wounds. Her touch was firm, professional, but Kaelin felt the slight tremor in her fingers. She was hiding something. "He saved your life, you know," she said, her voice dropping so low the guards at the door couldn't hear. "What? He stabbed me?" "You were already dying when we found you," she whispered, her stormy eyes finally lifting to meet his. "Milo didn't attack you, Alpha Kaelin. He saved you, and in doing so, he may have damned himself." Kaelin's world, already tilted on its axis, threatened to capsize completely. He stared at the Omega Healer, at the woman who was supposed to be his enemy, and saw the first crack in the story he'd been fed. The 30 shifters, the hostile Alpha, the vicious cub. It was all a lie, or at least a truth so twisted it was unrecognizable. "Explain," he commanded, his Alpha voice, though weakened, still holding a shred of its former power. Lyra flinched, but not from fear, from anger. "Do not command me, prisoner. You are in no position to demand anything. You will eat, you will rest, and you will pray to whatever gods you have that Alpha Marcus shows you mercy. Because the truth of what happened in that marsh, it's a truth no one here is ready to hear, especially not from the man who caused it. She finished her work, securing a fresh bandage with practiced efficiency. She picked up the bowl of broth and held it to his lips. Drink. This time, Kalen didn't argue. He drank, the warm, bitter liquid sliding down his raw throat, offering a small flicker of strength. He watched her over the rim of the bowl. She was right, he was a prisoner. But he was also an alpha, and he would not rest until he had the truth. He needed to heal. He needed to escape. And he needed to understand the Omega who hated him and the Cub who had apparently saved his life by stabbing him 8 times. For the next week, the infirmary room was his world. Lyra was his jailer, his healer, and her only link to the outside. She came 3 times a day, always with food, fresh bandages, and a silence that was louder than any accusation. She never brought another shifter, and the guards at the door never spoke. Kalen's strength returned in infuriatingly slow increments. The wounds on his side began to itch, the flesh slowly knitting back together, but the poisoned feeling lingered. His wolf remained dormant, a sleeping beast in a cage of his own broken flesh, and it terrified him. An alpha without his wolf was nothing. He learned to read Lyra's moods. The set of her jaw when Marcus had been difficult, the flicker of sadness in her eyes when she thought he wasn't looking, the way her hands, so steady when she was working, would sometimes tremble when she was packing her supplies to leave. On the 5th day, he finally felt strong enough to push. "You're lying to me," he said, his voice stronger now. He was sitting up, propped against the thin pillows. Lyra, who was stirring a thick healing paste in a mortar, didn't look up. About what? About everything. This pack, that cub, these wounds. You said he saved me. How? She stopped stirring. "It doesn't matter. You're healing. You'll stand before the council soon enough." "It does matter," Kalen insisted, leaning forward. The pull on his stitches was a sharp reminder of his weakness, but he ignored it. "I am an alpha. I am owed the truth." "You are a prisoner," she snapped, her head whipping up. Her stormy eyes flashed. "You are owed nothing. You came onto our land, armed, tracking a rogue you can't prove exists, and you were found near our most vulnerable member. You are lucky to be alive. And I'm telling you, I didn't touch him. I never even got close. I was attacked before the cub." This time he saw it clearly, a flash of pure, undiluted fear in her eyes. She knew. "Who attacked me, Lyra?" he pressed, his voice softening. "If it wasn't the cub, who?" She turned her back to him, her shoulders tense. Silas. The name was a whisper. "So he is real?" Kalen breathed. "Marcus said—" "Marcus believes what is convenient," Lyra said, her voice bitter. "He believes Silas is a myth, a boogeyman your pack invented. But I know better. My parents, they were the ones who first warned the council about him years ago. They were branded traitors, accused of trying to sow discord. They were exiled. They died in the wastes, hunting the very man everyone called a ghost." Kalen felt a cold dread settle in his stomach. "Silas, he's the one who wounded me." Lyra turned, her face pale. "Yes, I found you. You were already down. He was standing over you. His blades, they were dark, coated in something I'd never seen. He's no good to me dead," he said. "His wolf needs to be alive when I take it. He was marking you for a ritual." Kalen felt his blood run cold. "He's a taker, a magic thief." "Yes," Lyra whispered. "I've only read about them in the forbidden texts." I screamed. He hit me, threw me against a tree. By the time I came to, he was gone. And you were convulsing. Your veins were black. The poison from his blades was killing you. But worse, it was dissolving your wolf. I could feel it. I could feel you dying." Her eyes filled with tears, which she angrily wiped away. "I tried to heal you. I used every herb I knew. Nothing worked. The poison was too strong, too magical. I was desperate." "The cub," Kalen said, the pieces clicking into place. "Milo, he followed me. He always does. He saw you. He saw you dying." Lyra's voice broke. "Milo is like me, an outcast. His parents were Alpha Blood, but they were killed by rogues. He was found half-starved. His shift is broken. He can't change. He's just a boy. The pack shuns him. They think he's cursed, but he's not. He's special." She took a shaky breath, moving closer to the bed. "He has a magic, an old magic. The pack fears it. It's why they keep him isolated. It's why I'm the only one who cares for him. He can purge." "Purge," Kalen repeated, his mind racing. He touched you, and he recoiled, hissing. He could feel the poison. He looked at me, and I knew what he was going to do. I had read about it. A bloodletting, a ritual to draw a magical curse from a body. But it required a sacrifice, an offering of pain. I begged him not to, but he lunged." Kalen stared at his bandages. "He stabbed me 8 times. Yes." Lyra was crying openly now, her hands twisting in her tunic. "Not with malice, with intent. He wasn't trying to kill you. He was puncturing the curse. Each stab a different focal point of your energy. He was drawing the black magic into himself. He was screaming, Kalen. The pain, the curse was flowing through him. He saved your life. He took the poison that was killing your wolf and anchored it to his small body." Kalen was speechless. This cub, this outcast, had performed an act of sacrificial magic to save a total stranger, an enemy Alpha. And I didn't know if it would work," Lyra choked out. "You were still bleeding, from the stabs and from Silas's wounds. I ran for help. I brought back Marcus and the council, 30 of them." They found you, covered in blood. The cub collapsed beside you, smoking with dark energy, and me weeping over you both. It looked like you had attacked him and had fought back. It was the only story I could tell, the only one Marcus would believe." "Why?" Kalen demanded. "Why lie?" "Because if they knew the truth, if they knew what Milo could do, they would see him as a weapon or a threat. Marcus would lock him away for his own protection. Or Silas, if he ever found out what Milo is capable of." She shuddered. "Silas wasn't just there for you, Kalen. I think he was hunting, and he found me, and Milo found him. I think Silas is hunting for Milo." "So the 30 shifters, they were standing vigil," Lyra said, her voice hollow, "waiting to see if you would live, waiting to pass judgment. I've been trying to heal you, trying to purge the rest of the poison Milo couldn't take without anyone knowing. I've been telling Marcus you're too weak to be moved, to be questioned. I've been buying you time, buying us time." Kalen looked at this small, fierce Omega. She had lied to her Alpha, to her entire pack. She had tended to her pack's enemy. She had protected the cub who was her only family, and she had saved his life. His wolf, which had been so silent, suddenly surged, a white-hot wave of recognition that slammed into him with the force of a physical blow. It wasn't just gratitude. It wasn't just admiration. It was something primal, undeniable. The world narrowed to her face, to her stormy eyes, to the scent of rain and moss that he now recognized as the most vital scent he had ever known. Mate. The word was torn from his soul. He must have said it aloud, because Lyra's eyes widened, her hand flying to her mouth. What did you say?" "You," he breathed, reaching out, his hand closing over her wrist. Her skin was warm, and a jolt of pure energy, of life, shot up his arm. "It's you, my mate." Lyra stared at him, her face a mask of disbelief, then dawning horror. No, that's not, it can't be. You're an alpha, a blood moon alpha. I'm an omega." "I don't care," Kalen said, his voice raw. He gently tugged her wrist. "Lyra." She snatched her hand back as if burned. "No, it's the poison, it's the trauma. You're confused." "I am not confused," he growled, the alpha in him rising, protective and fierce. "My wolf has been silent for days, and the first thing it does, the moment it has strength, is recognize you. You are mine." "I am no one's," she cried, backing away. I am a pariah, a broken omega protecting a cursed cub. Your pack they would never accept me. My pack, Marcus, Marcus? What about him?" Kalen's eyes narrowed. He has offered to protect me, to make me his. He wants me," she whispered, her fear palpable. "If he knew, if he thought for a second that we were." The door to the infirmary slammed open. Marcus stood there, his face a thundercloud. He had heard. His eyes flicked from Lyra's terrified face to Kalen's bare-chested, possessive posture on the bed. "His, are you?" Marcus's voice was dangerously soft. "He's healed then. Healed enough to make claims on my pack members. Healed enough to stand trial." "Marcus, no, you don't understand," Lyra pleaded, stepping between them. "Oh, I understand perfectly," Marcus spat. "He's a prisoner of war, and he just threatened a member of my pack." He jerked his head at the guards. "Take him to the cells. He's had enough of Lyra's special care." The guards seized Kalen. He surged to his feet, his healing wounds screaming in protest. He was still weak, the poison a dull anchor in his veins. He shrugged one guard off, but the other slammed the butt of a spear into his bandaged side. Kalen roared in pain, collapsing to his knees. "Kalen!" Lyra screamed, lunging for him. Marcus caught her, his hand clamping around her arm. "You will stay away from him, Lyra. He is an enemy. He has poisoned your mind." "He's my mate!" she shrieked, the word out before she could stop it. The room went dead silent. The guards froze. Kalen, on his knees, looked up, his heart breaking at the terror on her face. Marcus's expression turned from fury to something far more terrifying, a cold, possessive darkness. "No," Marcus said, his voice chillingly calm. "He's a mistake, one that will be corrected." He dragged Lyra back, shoving her toward the door. "Guards, take the prisoner. If he resists, break his legs." Kalen could do nothing as they hauled him to his feet, his body screaming, and dragged him from the only sanctuary he had known. He locked eyes with Lyra as they pulled him past her. Her face was a portrait of sheer terror, not for herself, but for him. He was a prisoner. His mate was in the hands of a jealous, enraged alpha. And the rogue who had started it all was still out there, hunting the cub who had saved his life. The cell was a cold, damp hole in the earth, barely tall enough to stand in. They'd thrown him in, his side bleeding afresh, and left him in the dark. The void where his wolf usually raged was back, his strength sapped by the reopened wounds and the lingering poison. He was an alpha, reduced to this. He slammed his fist against the stone wall, a growl of pure frustration tearing from his chest. He could feel Lyra, not her thoughts, but her emotion. The mate bond, newly snapped into place, was a raw, two-way conduit of feeling. And right now, she was terrified. He paced the tiny cell, his mind racing. He had to get out. He had to get to her. He had to protect her and Milo. Silas was the key. Marcus wouldn't listen to a prisoner, but Lyra believed him. Hours passed, or maybe it was minutes. Time blurred in the subterranean dark. He was starting to lose hope when he heard a faint scraping sound. A small stone in the corner of his cell dislodged, pushed from the other side. A moment later, a small, pale face peered through the gap. Milo! Kalen froze. The cub stared at him, his large eyes wide and luminous in the gloom. He wasn't hissing. He didn't look afraid. He looked curious. Milo, Kalen breathed, moving slowly, crouching down. It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you. Milo tilted his head. He pushed a small cloth-wrapped bundle through the hole. Kalen carefully took it. Inside was a hunk of hard bread, a strip of dried meat, and a small, tightly corked vial. She sent you? Kalen asked, his voice thick. Milo nodded. He pushed something else through. A small carved piece of wood. A wolf. Kalen recognized it. He'd seen Lyra carving it idly during one of their silences. It was a token, a promise. Milo, you have to help me, Kalen said urgently. That man, Silas, he's coming back. He's coming for you and for Lyra. Do you understand? He's a taker. Milo's body went rigid. The name resonated. The cub let out a low, distressed keen. I have to get out. I have to protect her. Can you get the key? Milo shook his head frantically. He pointed up, then made a growling, menacing face. Marcus had the key. Kalen's heart sank. Then you have to hide, Milo. Take Lyra and hide. Go to the Deadwood Marsh where she found me. Hide there until I can... A sudden, agonizing scream ripped through the air. It was Lyra. The sound hit Kalen like a physical blow. The mate bond amplified it, a wave of pure, undiluted agony and terror. He roared, throwing himself against the cell door, his shoulder slamming into the thick wood. Lyra! Milo shrieked, scrambling back, disappearing from the hole. Lyra! Kalen bellowed again, his wolf surging, a desperate feral power fueled by his mate's pain. He hit the door again, and this time a crack appeared. He wasn't just weak anymore. His alpha strength, his true strength, was answering his mate's call. He heard shouting from above, the clash of steel, the guttural roars of shifters in battle. Silas! Kalen snarled. He was fear. He had attacked the pack, and he had Lyra. Kalen drew back and kicked the door, aiming for the cracked wood. It splintered. He kicked again, his legs screaming in protest, but he didn't care. The door burst open. The two guards at the end of the cell block turned, their spears leveled, shock on their faces. Kalen didn't give them time to react. He moved like a shadow, his weakness forgotten, his body a weapon. He took the first guard high, his forearm connecting with the man's throat. The second lunged, and Kalen, using the man's own momentum, spun him into the wall. He grabbed the guard's spear and, without a second thought, slammed the butt of it into the man's temple. They were down. He raced up the stone steps, emerging into chaos. The main clearing of the Stonefang village was a war zone. 5 rogues, their eyes black with stolen, corrupted magic, were tearing through the Stonefang fighters. Marcus was in his half-shifted form, a massive, snarling beast holding his own against 2 of them. But Silas was nowhere to be seen. And neither was Lyra. "The nursery!" Kalen roared, his heart seizing. "Milo!" Silas was after Milo. He sprinted past the battle, ignoring the rogue who tried to intercept him. He was faster, fueled by a purpose the rogue couldn't understand. He burst into the longhouse that served as the pack nursery, skidding to a halt. He was right. Silas was there, his back to the door. He held Lyra in front of him, a curved black blade pressed to her throat. She was white-faced, trembling, but her eyes were pure fire. In the corner, cowering behind a stack of furs, was Milo. "So," Silas mused, his voice a silky, arrogant drawl. He hadn't even bothered to look at Kalen. "The pet alpha awakens. I was wondering if you'd survive the cub's mercy." "Let her go," Kalen growled, his hands clenching. He was unarmed, save for the stolen spear, and Silas had his mate. "Oh, I don't think so." Silas turned, a cruel smile playing on his lips. He was wiry, his features sharp, his eyes a pale, empty blue. "You see, I came back for what I was promised, the brat's magic." His parents were difficult. They refused to share their gift. So I took their lives. But I left the boy, a seed. I knew one day his power would blossom, and I'd come back to harvest it. You murdered them," Lyra choked out, tears of rage in her eyes. They were my family, my aunt and uncle." Silas chuckled. "A family of freaks. And now the little freak is going to give me what I'm owed. And you, my dear," he tightened his grip on Lyra, "are going to be my insurance." "No," Kalen said. "No?" Silas laughed. "What are you going to do, Alpha? You're wounded. Your wolf is poisoned, broken. I can smell it on you. You are a shell." "You're wrong," Kalen said, his voice dropping. "My wolf wasn't broken. It was just sleeping, waiting. And you hurt my mate." He let his own shift surge. It wasn't his full wolf, his body couldn't take that yet. But his eyes bled gold, his canines elongated, and his claws shot from his fingertips. A low, guttural roar echoed in the small room. It wasn't just a sound, it was a claim, a promise of death. Silas's smile faltered, his eyes widening in surprise. He hadn't expected this. "Milo!" Lyra suddenly shrieked. "The paste! On the shelf!" Kalen saw it. On a high shelf, a row of clay jars. The healing paste. But not just that. Next to it, a dark, gleaming powder. Silver nitrate. And beside that, a bundle of dried herbs. Wolfsbane. Silas followed her gaze. "Clever girl. A little potion? It won't save you." "It's not for me," Lyra snarled, and with a strength Kalen didn't know she possessed, she stomped her heel down, hard, on Silas's instep and drove her elbow back into his solar plexus. Silas roared, his grip loosening for a fraction of a second. It was all Kalen needed. He threw the spear, not at Silas, at the shelf above him. The spearhead embedded itself in the wood, shattering the jars. A cloud of herbs, paste, and the deadly silver powder rained down. Silas screamed as the silver nitrate hit his skin, sizzling on contact. He shoved Lyra away, his hands flying to his face, his black magic lashing out in uncontrolled, agonized waves. Lyra scrambled toward Milo. "Get out! Run!" But Milo wasn't running. The cub, who had cowered in fear, was now standing. His small body was trembling, but his eyes were glowing with a faint white light. He looked at Silas, who was trying to wipe the burning silver from his face. He looked at Lyra, safe. And he looked at Kalen, who was advancing, his claws bared. Milo let out a sound. Not a hiss, not a shriek. A roar. A sound far too powerful for his small body. He raised his hands, and a wave of pure white energy shot from his palms, slamming into Silas. It wasn't a physical blow. It was a purging. Kalen watched, stunned, as the black, corrupted magic Silas had stolen began to peel away from him, dissolving into the air. Silas screamed, a high, thin sound of true terror, as his power, his stolen life force, was unraveled. He collapsed to his knees, weakened, smoldering, his skin blistered from the silver. He looked up at Kalen, his pale eyes wide with hatred. "This isn't over." Kalen stalked forward, his golden alpha eyes boring into the rogue. "It is." He raised his clawed hand. "Kalen, no!" Lyra cried. Don't kill him, not like this." Kalen paused, his hand trembling with the need to finish it, to tear the threat apart. He looked at Lyra, then at Milo, who was watching him, his small face pale but resolute. He lowered his hand. He was an alpha, not a butcher. "Marcus!" he roared, his voice carrying over the sounds of the dying battle outside. "Get in here! We have your ghost!" Seconds later, Marcus burst in, his chest heaving, his face bloody. He stopped dead, taking in the scene. Silas, defeated and smoking on the floor. Lyra holding a trembling Milo. And Kalen standing over them all, his alpha presence dominant, protective. Marcus looked at Silas, at the sizzling silver burns, at the drained, magicless husk. He looked at Kalen. His expression was a complex mix of disbelief, humiliation, and a grudging respect. It's really him," Marcus breathed. "His all yours," Kalen said, his shift receding, his knees suddenly weak. The adrenaline was fading, and the pain from his side came rushing back. He stumbled. "Kalen!" Lyra was there, her arms around him, holding him up. Her small, strong body was the only thing keeping him vertical. He buried his face in her hair, inhaling her scent. Rain, moss, and home. "It's okay," he murmured, his voice thick. "I'm okay. You're safe. He's safe." He looked over her head at Marcus. The Stonefang Alpha was staring at his hand, still clamped around Lyra's arm. He was staring at the way Lyra was holding Kalen, not as a healer, but as an anchor. "She's my mate, Marcus," Kalen said, his voice leaving no room for argument. "I am claiming her, by my right as an alpha, by her right as my fated." Marcus' jaw worked. He looked at Lyra, his eyes searching, pleading. Lyra, her face pressed against Kalen's chest, simply shook her head, a single, final gesture. Marcus's shoulders slumped. He had lost. He looked at Silas, then at the guards who had followed him in. "Take this filth back to the cells. Hell wish for death before I'm through with him." He turned and walked out, his pack, his world, and his pride shattered and remade in a single night. Kalen let out a breath he felt like he'd been holding since he woke up in this hostile place. He was in his mate's arms. The cub was safe. The war was over. But as he looked down at his side, at the 8 small puckered scars that were already beginning to form, he knew his life had just begun. The Stonefang Infirmary felt different this time. It was quiet, the air clean. The sun streamed through the small window, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. Kalen lay on the cot, his bandages fresh, his body aching, but the deep, septic throb of the poison was gone. Milo had purged the last of it, his small hands glowing as he'd pressed them to Kalen's side, his eyes squeezed shut in concentration. Lyra sat on the stool beside him, her hand resting over his. They hadn't spoken much since the fight. There hadn't been a need. The bond between them thrummed, a quiet, steady song of peace and belonging. Milo was asleep, curled at the foot of the bed, his small form finally relaxed. He was no longer a pariah. He was the pack's savior. The whispers of cursed had been replaced with awed murmurs of blessed. "Marcus, he'll be okay," Lyra said quietly, breaking the silence. "He's a good alpha, just proud. He offered a formal alliance between Stonefang and Bloodmoon. He said your pack is welcome here, always, as family." Kalen smiled, lacing his fingers with hers. "And what about you?" "Me?" She looked up, her stormy eyes soft. I'm not a Stonefang Omega anymore, am I?" "No," Kalen said, his voice firm. "You are the Luna of the Bloodmoon, my mate, my equal." I don't know how to be that," she whispered, a flicker of the old insecurity. "I'm just Lyra, the girl who talks to herbs and hides broken cubs." "You're the woman who lied to her alpha to save an enemy," Kalen said, pulling her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles. "You're the woman who faced down a magic thief. You're the strongest person I've ever met, and you are everything." She blushed, a lovely flush that warmed her pale cheeks. "And Milo? Milo comes with us. He'll be my personal, what would you call it? My alpha apprentice in magic," Kalen said, smiling. "My pack, they will honor him, as will I." "Hell like that," Lyra said, a tear tracing a path down her cheek. She wiped it away. He saved you." Kalen looked down at his side. He traced the 8 small, perfectly round scars that patterned his skin. They would never fade. They were a map of his lowest point and his greatest salvation. "He marked me," Kalen murmured, his voice rough with emotion. Lyra placed her hand over his, her small, warm palm covering the scars. Her touch was home. It was peace. It was his future. "No," she whispered, leaning in to press her lips to his, a soft, promising kiss that sealed their fate. "He chose you, and so do I."